Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. Milwaukee Tools has come out with their first Flarenut wrench set, and that alone, well, it's not earth-shattering, but I came across a comment elsewhere that made me curious enough to want to find out, because there was certainly some disagreement from others about whether or not Milwaukee is professional grade. Well, their cordless stuff, I think on the whole, is no doubt professional grade. We've shown that to be true in past testing. Even their lighting, I feel, is probably professional grade. But does that make them the same grade across everything they make? They recently started producing USA-made hand tools, so they certainly hope to sell you on that idea, but they make plenty of products elsewhere as well, including these new Flarenut wrenches. So let's see if they're any good versus what we've tested before, including Snap-on and Craftsman, as well as a few new entries from brands you guys requested in the comments. This includes testing on soft nuts, rounded nuts, proof torque, and hardness. We've tested Milwaukee combo wrenches before and found them to be quite good, but they also borrowed a jaw design from existing Icon and Carlisle wrenches and made in Taiwan. This new 48-22-9470 set is made in China, so it could be something else performance-wise. Let's find out. We bought this set for $60, and that's $12 a wrench, which puts them on the upper end cost-wise of what we tested thus far. They certainly are very Milwaukee in design, not an off-the-shelf model, and measure in their clearance, or how far over nominal in their sizes the jaws are, as 0.008 and 0.003 inches over, which are both quite good. 0.003 inches, in fact, matching or besting really the Snap-on set. The Snap-on Flarenut wrenches are currently sitting atop of our ranking because, well, we feel they are the best. If you ask most mechanics, they'd say the same. And we would too, even though we don't often say that about the brand on this channel, but they're freaking good. So we'll use that top scoring set and a middle rank set from the old Craftsman here to compare to each new participant today to provide some context for their performance. On our first stop, we're going to look at coupling nuts, how far the wrench can turn one of these before slipping. A common misconception is that we're actually measuring really the hardware strength here, but while wrench strength is a good stat, and we'll be doing that as well, for most of us, it's not the wrench that gets messed up when you're using these things, it's the bolt or nut. In our testing, each wrench has the same opportunity to see how far it can go before slipping. The wrenches who are least likely to mar your fastener go furthest before doing so. And to this guy's point, it is pretty important on line wrenches, as Flarenuts are soft and easy to bugger up. Okay, the 9/16 side of this Milwaukee up first, Snap-on and Craftsman, also on screen with 925 and 598 PSI of bolt tension. We use pressure here simply because it has provided more resolution for these tests. The new Milwaukee makes it to 723, which is quite good, but not touching that Snap-on just yet. Our next contestant is Williams, traditionally a USA-made brand, but this is from their, I believe, Taiwan set, 11690. Now, I hate these types of tags with adhesive that won't easily come off. I'm going to leave it on this wrench in protest now. This being a non-USA made set means it's more affordable and closer in price to the Milwaukee, but still $67 for a 4-piece set or $1680 a wrench. Its bolt clearance measures out to 0.007 and 0.009 inches over, so the Milwaukee fared better here, but on the whole, this is about average from what we've seen. Let's see what it can do on a wide 9/16 nut. The Williams, known for being sort of the manufacturing arm for some Snap-on hand tools, isn't able to match that name here and makes 770, still quite good though when you compare it to the average Craftsman. Next up in price, we have Proto, a US-made name and has often done very well on this channel when we're just measuring performance. This is from their J3760, which is a 3-piece set for $84 or $28 a wrench, which already makes this very simple tool the second most expensive line wrench we've tested thus far. This one measures 0.009 and 0.006 inches over, very similar to the Williams. Often seeing 0.11 to 0.13 inches over is not uncommon with past wrenches we've been looking at so far. The Proto is a bit of a beast. You can crank and crank on this and it just feels very solid. It makes it way up there, nearly maxing out this fastener's many threads of engagement, but does eventually leap forward, taking some material with it at 905. Super impressive. Okay, last up for today, we have the Mac Tools. This is from their SFB 56 PTR set, which is a $250 set. That's $50 a wrench, closing in on that Snap-on pricing now. For the dough though, you're getting some tight fitment, which is what you'll want on a line wrench of all tools, I think, with 0.003 and 0.003 over, the tightest fitting wrench we've ever tested. This looks like a knuckle saver generation of Mac wrenches, but I don't believe it says so. However, this type of performance that it was able to deliver would certainly save your knuckles, and line nuts sure draw as much blood around here as any. This Mac example piles on the PSI and ultimately maxes out this hardware. The nut is just compacting on itself now. 930 effectively matching the snap-on with max points. Very nice. Now, before we get into rounded nuts, I think it's worth diving straight into half-inch on these now, because oddly enough in this specific test, the snap-on had its worst showing on the day with 681, and the Craftsman did 676. So this is where some of these brands can likely make the most headway. Let's check it out. Here's the Milwaukee up first. The Milwaukee does super well when we're talking just turning this half-inch nut up really high, but it does experience some jaw spread up into those 700s, not something we usually get to see on camera. You could see the hex start digging into the flats of the wrench here, which is basically backwards of what you want, and even start to wear away this finish on those flats. But 740 or so is where it was able to turn things up to, and that's quite good. The Williams, we saw a similar phenomenon eventually happen, but by the time we noticed that, we looked up and saw 800 on the dial, and also noticed that the nut was collapsing in on itself. Maxing this out, which is something we've never done before on this size, very nice. The Proto experience, just a good old-fashioned crank on it until it starts to slip, then you should stop, but we continue and it rounds that nut just like in real life. 747, another great showing though. We definitely picked some upper crust tools today. Now the Mac doesn't have radius corners to drive with, which is old school, and normally I'd stay away from that, but it must use its super tight tolerance to grip because it does grip extremely well, up to 800, or the max of this fastener can tighten to, and there it would stay gripped on there, not wanting to come off. It wouldn't let go. So this is what things look like right now on the leaderboards. We have the precision or clearance over here, and their turny tallying over here thus far. We grade on a curve, so like up to 10, ranking them 1 to 10 in sequential order doesn't make much sense. If one tool performs similarly to another, it shouldn't be dinged with a full point of ranking. They should score about the same. Lots of 8s, 9s, and 10s here, but that's because, well, these are all quite good thus far. Some less than good tools we've tested in the past as well. Okay, on to some precision rounded nuts, then proof torque and hardness coming up. We round these nuts dimensionally 30% using this fixture on a tabletop grinder. Seems to do the trick. And we can sort of speed through this stage, as it's, well, a bit boring, because the Milwaukee, and this is in foot-pounds, makes it up to 14. So, okay. Every other wrench, on the other hand, was able to max out this fastener, for the most part, in half-inch and in 9/16, which is why we usually use coupling nuts, more threads, to survive that testing, but narrow and rounded stuff is worth testing, we typically find as well. And that resulted in this, the Williams being the only other one to not max out all of these and still gets pretty good performance with a 9 out of 10. The Milwaukee, comparatively of course, has a harder time with fasteners that are already rounded, as shown here for reasons we're not really quite sure of. But is it strong? Let's check that out. By using new S2 tool steel bit sockets for each wrench, we turn these with a torque wrench until it slips and clocks out of position, which for the Milwaukee is 88.3 foot-pounds in half-inch, and 98.4 for the 9/16. Both very good, as you'll see, compared to the Snap-on and average Craftsman. The Taiwan-made Williams can hold 69.5 and 89.6 foot-pounds. Lower, but you also have to consider the sizes we're talking here. These are all very strong tools for these sizes of wrenches. The Proto, that takes 97 foot-pounds before slipping on the half-inch, and 93.8 on the 9/16, curiously less than the half-inch, but both again very high torque. Now for the Mac, well, you just have to watch the Mac. So instead of slipping it, open up the jaws and basically open them way up. One's halfway across the shop now. We're still talking 89 foot-pounds here, but perhaps a sign of the wrench is too far hardened. We'll find out. The 9/16 end, though, performed well, 100.5 foot-pounds. We don't need to wait to find out on that hardness subject. The ASME spec is 38 to 55 HRC, with 55 flying a bit close to the sun in my opinion, but the Mac Tools here measures 57.9, by far the hardest Flarenut wrench we've ever tested. And here you will see the others from today added, and some decently hard wrenches included as well, but the Mac is probably a bit too hard, and ASME spec agrees with that. We don't rank with hardness, of course, because it alone doesn't tell you everything, but we do rank with these results, which looks like this. Now, averaging all these scores out of 10, that makes for 8.13 for the new Milwaukee wrenches, 8.13 again for Williams, 9.13 for Proto, and 9.87 for Mac, with an asterisk for breaking on us, but that does happen to put it into first. Given the price similarity, I'd probably keep using these Snap-on. They have just proven to be that good. But if you're considering or see a good deal on these, they are worth it for sure. And then Milwaukee, I guess the question posed for today, are they professional? Well, look where it placed, and perhaps you can answer that yourself based on the names surrounding it. One thing's for sure, the price these go for, it's hard to find something else within this budget range that performs similarly from what we've measured so far. Hopefully their new USA-made stuff, which includes screwdrivers and pliers, which is a bit less wallet-friendly, is just as good or better. Appreciate you joining us for this one. We make stuff like this at least every Friday. Click subscribe only if you want to make sure to catch those. And thanks for watching.